The Dutch movie industry was once bigger than even Hollywood, especially when it came to movies for children. We'll take a trip down memory lane and show you 10 forgotten children's films that only real Dutch people still know. Number 10. Dik Trom in het Circus. As far as old Dutch movie lines go, it's hard to beat the one from Dik Trom and the Circus. He is a special child, that is for sure. Is he special because of all the silly things he does, or because of his honesty? It's hard to tell, but one thing's for sure. It makes the plump kid Dik Trom a folk hero of that time. In 1960, he finally appeared in cinemas, in which his honesty and his love for mischief were perfectly depicted. The film also perfectly captured the atmosphere of the original books, something that can't really be said for today's movies. Dik Trom was the example of a kid whose heart was in the right place, even if he did ride a donkey backward. The movie had a great lesson for all kids of that time. Honesty was the way to go. 9. Peter and the Vliegende Autobus. So the Fortnite battle bus existed all the way in 1976? It wouldn't be a surprise, since this film is about an ordinary school bus that takes to the skies thanks to magical balloons. Peter and the Flying Bus gives us a real trip down memory lane, symbolizing the Netherlands' youth from the past. The film took children seriously, casting them as heroes who had to stop an evil inventor. It was a real adventure that showed that the Dutch film industry could hold its own against any other movie industry in the world. The Flying Bus remains one of the most iconic images in Dutch film history. Anyone who saw this film back then will never look at an old bus the same way again, without secretly hoping it might take off at any moment. 8. The Overval. Even if this film was an adaptation of a true act of resistance in Leeuwarden was serious in tone, older kids represented it as one of the classic real action movies. It was one of the most thrilling and suspenseful Dutch movies of the early 1960s. It took place in a time that didn't have expensive CGI effects, but it definitely made up for it in pure atmosphere and craftsmanship. The perfect example of this is the iconic prison break scene. For many, it was their introduction to national history in a way that didn't come from a schoolbook. Sitting down and watching a movie about the silent raid came a lot easier than sitting down and reading about it in history books. A true classic. 7. Ciske de Rat. A movie that motivated many. It was one of the first Dutch black and white movies that depicted one's rise from poverty. Due to that, it was the talk of the whole nation in 1955. Pair that with Amsterdam and an unforgettable face of young Dick van der Velden, and you're bound to capture the hearts of millions. With his cheeky face and a heart of gold, Ciske navigated poverty and learned from the streets the hard way. This film was so popular that cinemas could barely handle the crowds. A story of falling and getting back up that remains a symbol of the resilience of Dutch youth to this day. It was one of those movies that had you in tears by the end of it. It paved the way for black and white adaptations of books, that's for sure. 6. Billy Turf, het dikste studentje ter wereld. With a title like Billy Turf, the fattest student in the world, the movie was sure to grab attention. It's safe to say that it did. In 1978, the world-famous comic character Billy Turf made the unforgettable leap to the big screen. This lazy, snack-loving boarding school student brought laughter back to the theaters. Although the humor was sometimes a bit brutal, children immediately took this fatty to their hearts. Billy Turf reminded people that life doesn't always have to be serious, and there's always a pastry to be found somewhere. Despite time passing by, the memory of the many whipped cream cakes that met their end in this film remains a source of joy. 5. Fanfare. At one point, this was one of the biggest movies in the world, drawing more attention and had more fans than many other movies around the world at that time, and yes, Hollywood included. Director Bert Hanstra knew better than anyone how to capture the Dutch national character. In the comedy Fanfare, everything revolves around the rivalry between two brass bands in a fictional village. Although it was a movie targeting the whole family, children loved the humor in it. The arguments over the right pitch led to hilarious situations that had young and old rolling in laughter. It's a film that shows how we in the Netherlands can sometimes be at each other's throats, yet ultimately have to find a way to get along. 4. Pinkeltje. Pinkeltje was one of the most beloved Dutch fictional characters, and in 1978 we finally got the movie adaptation we all wanted. I mean, it's a movie about the man no bigger than a pinky finger, played by Art Startjes, which was a definite feat for its time. Using innovative practical effects, the audience saw how he held his own in the world of big people. This exciting adventure in which he tries to rescue his gnome friends from the hands of a professor kept young and old glued to the screen. For many children, it was a chance to see their favorite book hero in the flesh. This film solidified the iconic status of Dick Laan's character and became an undisputed classic. 3. Sjors en Shimmy op het Pirateneiland. Sjors and Shimmy on Pirate Island covered the adventures of these two inseparable friends. Interestingly, it also brought an exotic touch to the Dutch movie industry. That, combined with the fact that in the 1960s, the productions of Henk van der Linde were a staple, meant that the movie was bound to be on this list. Although the films were made on a small budget, the imagination made up for it. The pirates and hidden treasures captured the attention of kids everywhere. The children of that era found that it was the ultimate entertainment. A wooden sword and an eye patch were enough for hours of fun. Thanks to the intense productivity of this Limburg filmmaker, a new adventure appeared almost every year, often based on the popular comic strips of the time. 2. De avonturen van Pietje Bel. Pietje Bel was the terror of every respectable citizen in Rotterdam. In 1964, this rebellious shoemaker's son got his own film, where his pranks caused quite a commotion. From organizing a circus to thwarting the strict Aunt Kato, the adventures of Pietje Bel showed everything children wanted to do themselves but didn't dare. It was a celebration of childhood freedom and resistance against the boring world of adults. A classic that proved a little rebellion now and then is quite healthy. The relatable humor and the sympathetic presence of the young lead actors ensured the story remained a holiday TV staple for decades. And finally, number 1. Ferdinand and the Toverdrank. Director Karst van der Meulen brought more professional magic and fantasy to the screen than many before her in 1970. Some say that this was when the style and character of children's films began to change. In this film, a 17th century lady comes to life from a painting thanks to a mysterious magic potion. It was a modern fairy tale full of special effects that were impressive for the time. Children dreamed of the idea that history could literally leap out of its frame and go on an adventure with you. This production marked a new era in which Dutch youth films were finally taken seriously as a high-quality part of our national cinematic art and culture.